Hello, I'm Penn Weichart from Skylight Depot in Tucson, Arizona. Today's instructional video is focused on how to replace the dome on an existing framed skylight. Let's jump into it. Okay, so this is your normal 2-foot by 2-foot skylight. This has a metal retainer frame and a base to the skylight, which is sandwiching the plastic in place. The first step of the process, anything to do with domes, is going to be from the roof. So you get up on the roof, you disassemble the outside of the metal retainer frame from the base of the skylight, and typically there's anywhere from 2 to 5 screws on each side of the skylight. And you just go around. Let's take the frame off here. Okay, so now that the screws are removed, we're going to lift off the metal retainer frame from the base. It should just pop right up, and the plastic should still be sitting underneath. So at this point, we're going to just measure the flat edge of the plastic to flat edge of the plastic. And on this one, we have a 25 1/4 square on the width, 25 1/4 square on the length. And then it's always helpful to understand what your flange dimension is. On our skylight here, we have about 1 1/4 inch flat lip on the outer dome. Typically, the outer dome and the inner dome are sealed together with a foam tape. And typically, the overall width and length of the plastic is identical. A lot of times, the flange on the inner dome is slightly larger, so about 1.5 inch flat lip on the inside. And then we put that back together. Once you have your measurements, the other thing we want you to focus on is the shape of the plastic. So this is what we call a gradual rise dome, where there's approximately 1.25 inch flat lip. Then it just gradually slopes up to a peak on this dome, about 4.5 inches on the outer dome, 3.25 inches on the inner dome. Then it gradually slopes down and flattens out for 1.25 inches. We'll show you some other images of different styles and shapes. If you have one of those unusual shapes, either a vertical rise or a dome over frame, we'll want you to contact us for some additional suggestions on how to replace those domes. Once you've got your measurements, we're going to just put the metal retainer cap back down on top, reassemble the frame. If at this point your old domes are so brittle or decaying that they're so cracked that you may want to throw a tarp over it before you get off the roof. One of the other things that's helpful to look at is if your flange is slightly larger than our flange, you can always measure the opening of the retainer frame just to make sure that our dome portion of our skylight is going to pop out through the opening of your frame. On this particular frame, the frame opening 23.5, and my dome on this one is going to measure about 22.75 by 22.75. So there's usually a slight little gap between where the retainer frame meets the flat edge of the plastic before it starts to gradually slope up. One of the most common misconceptions in the skylight industry is that there's a standard size. So most of our customers don't want to actually get up on the roof and disassemble the frame, and we understand you don't want to get up on the roof, you don't want to damage the dome more. The problem is, in the skylight industry, every manufacturer over the years has made their 2-foot by 2-foot skylights slightly different, as well as the deduction between the outside of the aluminum frame and the plastic that sits underneath it. So on our skylight, if you measured the outside of our aluminum frame on our curb mount skylight, ours would measure 27 inches square. However, the plastic that's under it, when you measured it and take the frame off, would measure 25 1/4 inches square. So we've seen the deduction be anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch to 2 inches. There's absolutely no standard. The only way to truly determine what the plastic measures is by removing the outside of the metal frame, placing the tape measure on the flat edge of the plastic to flat edge of the plastic. In the skylight industry, there are two common types of material. Over time, acrylic has probably been the norm. Acrylic has natural UV inhibitors in it, which prevents it from yellowing or changing color over time. Polycarbonate does not naturally have UV inhibitors in it. However, all the polycarbonate that we buy has what we call UV1 protection added to the top layer of the plastic, so it shouldn't yellow or fade over time. The true advantage of the polycarbonate is it's impact resistant. It holds up well with hails. If you live on a golf course, it can withstand a lot of impact. The acrylic is still very durable. It's just not designed to have you know, a golf ball size hail hit it with velocity and not punch a hole through it. So these are the two types of materials we sell. The polycarbonate is a little more expensive. Again, it is worth it if you need it, if you live in an area where you're concerned about something striking the skylight. And also you can drill through the flange of the polycarbonate, which is why the RV industry typically uses this type of material. The acrylic material, you can never drill through this material. Both materials are highly sensitive to chemicals, so you want to make sure never to try to clean it with a Windex or something like that. Water and a microfiber towel should be enough to just clean it, and for the most part your natural rainwater should take care of any issues that you have at kind of keeping the skylight clean over time. Most skylights today are insulated. Just like the window industry changed from single pane to double pane, the skylight industry followed. I can't always guarantee that my outer dome is going to marry up well with another manufacturer's inner dome, so most of our customers do order them as new sets. Typically there's about 1.25 inch air gap of dead air space between the outer dome and the top peak of the inner dome. We form the domes that way. My flange on the outer dome is closer to 1.25 inches prior to the gradual slope of the dome. On the inner dome, it can be sometimes closer to 1.5 inches flat lip prior to the gradual slope of the dome. So our two domes will always nest well together. We do include enough foam tape to go on the top edge of the inner dome, and then the outer dome rests on top of that. If you currently have a single dome, and which wouldn't be uncommon from like 30 years ago, and it's over a living space of your home, like in a bathroom, a living room, or a kitchen, you can always upgrade to 2 layers of plastic. When you go to put your skylight together, you may find that the original screw holes on your retainer frame no longer line up. You can always drill a new hole into the base of the skylight. It won't affect the functionality of the skylight, and it'll give you a little better insulation. If you decide that you want to try to use our outer dome with your current inner dome, you're always welcome to try it. You would order the outer option on our website. When the dome comes in, if for some reason it didn't marry up well with your current inner dome, you can always purchase our inner dome online at another time. It's more cost effective ordering it as a set, but I get it if you want to try to reuse your inner dome. We're happy to sell you just the outer dome. How to choose your dome color. Most customers replace their domes with the same colors they currently have. Your white over clear option is going to brighten the room with bright natural light. It just doesn't bring in direct sunlight. The translucent dome will reduce the amount of heat coming in through the unit. So where we are in Arizona, most of our skylights are white on the outside and clear on the inside. As you get into other parts of the country, the tints can be more popular. I would say that the bronze over clear is more popular of the two tints. Both the bronze and the gray are going to be similar to looking through a pair of sunglasses. The bronze is going to have a slight brownish amber tint when you look through it. The gray is going to have more of a grayish greenish tint to it. And then as you get into parts of the East Coast and Northeast, clear over clear is very common. It is going to bring in all the light, but it also brings in a little more heat than any of the other options. Common question that we get is, do the domes come assembled? The reason that we send the domes separately, so when you order a double dome, we send both the outer and the inner dome, and we include a little coil of foam tape. We typically place it between the two, and then we put it in the box. So when you receive it, when you pull it out of the box, there should be a foam tape in here. The reason that we don't seal it together for you is we don't want the plastic to get scratched prior to installation. So when you get ready to install, we'll start with the inner dome. So you're going to peel back. There's a protective film on both the top edge and on the bottom edge. So when you get ready to install, you're going to peel that off. And we're going to peel the inside of it off. And again, that clear inner dome should just have a nice clear feel once you remove the protective film. Then you're going to take your dome tape. You're going to start at one corner, about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch in on the flat edge of the plastic. You're going to take it and you're going to just apply it all along that edge as best as you can. When you get to the next corner, you're going to put your thumb down and just bend the tape slightly at a 90-degree angle. It's okay if it tears the little top white protective piece. Then we're going to just spin it around and we're going to work the tape to the next corner. When we get to the next corner, we're going to again put our thumb down and just lightly bend the tape at a 90-degree angle. And when we again flip it over, and we're going to go to the next corner. And then when we get to the last corner, we're going to bend it. And when you get back to where you began, you're going to overlap it and then tear any excess tape. So we typically give you a little more than you need. You're going to just clip it right here at the end. And then this is just a white protective film that usually just peels up. The tape is actually just sticky on one side only. What happens is over time, when you apply the outer dome to it, so again, we're going to peel the protective film off of the outer dome. We're going to apply that right over top of it. And again, what happens over time is the sun will kind of bake down and beat on it over time and bake these two pieces together. But typically, if you're careful, you can separate them out later. And so the other thing that we'll talk about as far as the foam tape is it really serves two purposes. The first purpose is plastic expands and contrasts with the change in temperature. So it basically is providing a buffer. So when the plastic expands and contrasts, it won't rub against itself, which can sometimes create an annoying popping sound. It also helps prevent condensation from forming between the two layers of plastic. So then once we're ready, we just peel off the top protective film. And we're ready to install these domes into our frame. Be mindful when you're taking the protective film off. Try not to touch the domes. They're definitely gonna get fingerprints if you touch it. On the polycarbonate material, it's much more sensitive to scratches than the acrylic is. So with the poly, if you rub it against something, you can get a little bit of a mark in the plastic. So now that we've applied the dome tape to the domes and we're ready to go install our new domes into our existing framed skylight, there are a couple things we want to go over. So when you get up on the roof to pull the metal retainer frame off and go to install your new set, a common question is, do we apply silicone here? If you look on our complete skylight, nowhere, anywhere in the frame is there silicone. And most skylights have a very simple design underneath where the dome sits. So on our skylight, the domes sit on top of a little trough. On our skylight, there's a little vinyl gasket that goes in that trough. Fortunately, it's specially formulated for our skylight, so we typically don't sell this piece of vinyl. It's designed just for our skylight. The dome sits on top of that. On a lot of older skylights, the plastic sits just flush on metal. It won't harm anything. It's just giving the plastic a little bit of a buffer. But yeah, and again, there's a look at your condensation gutter on the inside. It's designed to trap the water, force it to the corner, and we just punch the corner of our skylight. Every skylight's going to have a slightly different design, but they'll all have the same mechanism, some way to collect the water and force it out of the unit. Okay, so the condensation gutter's on the inside here, and then this outside channel is designed to trap any water that would seep in through where the outside of the metal retainer frame's pushing down on the plastic. It's going to collect it in that channel and also force it to the corner where it'll exit out of the unit. So one of the most common issues we see with homeowners and installers is they think they have to make their skylight airtight, and they inadvertently come in and they block up all of these mechanisms that are designed to allow the water to weep out of the unit and prevent it from actually functioning properly. So the other issue with silicone, and the reason we don't typically recommend it on a residential skylight, is plastic's highly sensitive to chemicals. So if you're going to use a silicone, you really have to make sure that it's designed for use with either acrylic, polycarbonate, or Lexan plastic. If you need some recommendations, we can give you some, but for the most part, it's not needed. So now that you're up on the roof, you take your old broken domes off. You take the new domes that you already put together and you place them right back in the frame. And you want to line that up. When we reassemble the skylight, we're going to grab the retainer frame, that outside metal frame of the skylight. We're going to push it down firmly on the base of the skylight, which is sandwiching the plastic in place, and then use the original screws to go back into the original holes to reassemble the skylight back together. We hope today's video was informative. If there's anything else we can do to be of help, please let us know. Thanks and have a great day.